So one thing you mentioned that I know we haven't spoken about before on this series is you mentioned radio groups, and I'm
Mhm.
just curious, could you talk a little bit about that? I mean,
Yeah.
is it local? I'm sure it's local radio because it seems a bit easier and a bit less more cost effective. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know a lot of advisors are probably interested in that too.
Sure, sure. It actually did begin locally, and it wasn't my idea. It was our owner's idea. That he actually began before I even started working. So I started working for him in 2007, and he had begun working with K Jazz, I believe it was, which is like classical and K Mozart and K Jazz, classical and jazz music groups. And it had started that way with actually, I believe it was a Silver Sea group. And it snowballed from there because it worked so well. We decided to work in other ways. We decided to go after the country music market, and that's where when I began. This is where we started. This was like my first big group, 2007, 2008. We started working with a drive time radio show host, very popular in Southern California with one of the biggest country music radio stations, Go Country 105. And we started with we didn't know how it was going to go, but we started with kind of a local destination, just Mexico. And we had over 100 to 200 people reserve that. But we planned the next trip on that trip. And every year for 12 years later, we did that trip with that host, even though that host is now no longer in Southern California. He's actually nationally syndicated and now based in Tennessee, but he still has a huge following in Southern California. Those people have now moved to other places too, including Tennessee, Arizona, Nevada, Southern California, Northern California. And every year, because he was such a Pied Piper for the group and because he really nurtured those relationships also himself, that group at any given point, depending on the destination, we had almost 300 even in Alaska on just
Wow.
country music fan group. And all we did was we had the right host, someone who didn't hide and just do the 5 minutes of signing autographs and then you never see him again. I mean, you were joining him for meals, you were joining him in the casino. He's a great host. We had the wherewithal to make sure that we planned 1 year to the next on the current trip. So we didn't leave any kind of downtime to let things just kind of fizzle out. We struck while the iron was hot. The next bookings for the next year already confirmed on the last trip. And we've gone all over. We've done New England, Canada, Alaska, Caribbean multiple times, Mexico. It's been great. We're actually going to be we did a land trip this past year when we pandemic. We actually went to his stomping grounds in Tennessee and did a Nashville, Memphis trip. It was fabulous. And we're looking at Alaska again. And I think we're going to be even looking at Europe at some point. So those groups can be difficult, but they can also be really fun and easy too, because once you've done it once, you've done it for 100, it's the same thing. I have tips and tricks for that too, perhaps on another interview.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think that is so terrific because we've spoken about some radio advertising and some other small advertising on this series before and social media paid advertising, but we haven't talked about that specific kind of unique way to build a following and to use somebody else, not to use somebody else's following, but to employ somebody else's following in order to build a booking.
Yeah, the point is that everybody had one common interest, and it was country. Whether or not they liked the music, sang to the music, or danced to the music, it was just a common thread. And you have a great, lively host who's super supportive, loves his fans, loves the music and the culture and the theme of that. And when you're together and you like something similar, it's just a fun, downright great time. And those clients, whether we're doing those trips or not, have become my clients for other trips, whether it's their own family trips, little one-off trips here and there. But because I've traveled with them for 12 years, that's another key thing is I've traveled with those people for 12 years. Yeah. It's a relationship that has created a really nice friendship too.